is Talking to My Thoughts.
So my question for you, Taj, is when you was growing up, did you ever imagine yourself earning more or seeing yourself in others? Need it be because obviously I guess for your age, you're obviously exposed to the internet. You obviously knew that somebody was earning a lot of money in Dominica. My question is, did you ever imagine yourself to be one of those people or strive to those people?
This was actually the story of my childhood days. Ever since I could control my thoughts, I've ever imagined myself as I would not necessarily want to use the term rich, but being wealthy. Being wealthy. I used to think myself, as I said, as being a doctor, as being anything that could get me to being wealthy. So this has been the story of my childhood days throughout my entire childhood, even right now in adulthood. This has been my entire story. I have found myself lost a few times, even as a child as well, like if this is really possible. But this has been my entire story. I've always imagined myself, as being wealthy. And I always used to feel like I am meant to be wealthy as well. So the thought never came out from my mind up till this day.
Powerful. What was your one more question I'll ask you is what was your biggest inspiration?
What would inspire me the most, right?
Hmm.
Um, what would inspire me the most is I don't know. I just had a genuine urge to just get out of the situation that I was in at the time. Yeah, the situation that I was in at the time had me just, telling me like, hey, Tash, you just need to get this. You just need to get this. And as you said, I was exposed to the internet. I've seen young people, be successful and be wealthy and be at a position where they could help the people they truly care about, the people that they love. So seeing these people do it for me was a genuine inspiration and telling me, hey, Taj, it's not because you're from a small country that you can do it as well. We are all in one world. You might have to make, you might have to do it a different way, but the opportunity is there for everybody. I have life and I'm healthy, I'm strong. So seeing other people do it, whether it is in Dominica or out of Dominica, was always an inspiration to me. If they can, I'm always telling myself, if somebody can do something, then I can do it myself. So yeah.
Perfect. That's no. Thanks for that response, Simon. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I've got a question. I guess it's based on your original word that you brought up, which is about poverty. And obviously, one of the things that you mentioned in your voice note was that you always had the idea of your aspiration was to find a position in the world which could get you out of poverty, whether it's to be a doctor, whether it's to be a politician, something which is going to help fulfill that richness. Has there ever been okay, so first of all, I guess my first question is, what is your experience with poverty? And the second part to that is, what do you think it will help you to fulfill once you get to that stage of richness?
Um, well, in terms of poverty, on the poverty aspect of things, I would not say that I completely grew up in poverty. However, my country is filled with poverty, so I felt like, this is me growing up in poverty. Um, what would this fulfill like if I get to that level? What would this fulfill? To me, this would mean the world. This would mean the world because I would be able to achieve my purpose for wanting to do so, which is to help others, not just my family, as I've said, but my country by extension. If I could go beyond my country and help people, even all over the region or even possibly over the world, this for me would be success. This is success to me. Me being able to help the people that I love and care about, and not just people in my country. I have a genuine love for people, and I've seen what it is to be in poverty. So anybody that I could assist in getting out of that stage would mean success to me. This would definitely be success to me. you know. So if I can get wealthy to a position where I could help a lot of people, that's everything, man. That's the world to me. That's the world.
Are you willing to die for that?
Am I willing to die for that? I love this question. I love this question. Honestly, for my family, possibly yes. For my family, possibly yes. Yeah, possibly yes. Possibly.
There's a hesitation there, though. What's the hesitation? 'Cause you said possibly. You said possibly. What's the hesitation?
I believe, yeah, I would for my mom, my siblings. I believe, yeah, my father, you know, these people, I know they genuinely love me. You know, they tell me all the time, if they have to die to see me alive, they would, you know. So why would I
Mm.
not do it for them? Yeah, yeah.
Craig, what about you? Would you be willing to die for that?
I'm gonna ask my question first, and then
Okay.
you'll know why I'll ask the question. The question for both of you is: what do you believe the advantages are of being poor over people who are rich?
I guess, or the only advantage I can think of in regards to being poor is learning the value and the appreciation. It's giving you an insight into what you actually have. When you're born into richness, when you're born into wealth, you don't have that sense of value or appreciation, which someone that's poor does. I think that's the only, I don't know, it may be the only, it's arguable, but for me, it will be the only positive, I guess, you could get out of being in poverty is learning that appreciation and the value of what you have.
What about you, Taj?
Quite frankly, Simon did hit the nail on its head. Simon did hit the nail on its head. You know, he did hit the nail on its head. I mean, if you grow up rich, if you grow up in a rich family, you know, then living your entire life rich would be like almost nothing to you, you know. However, if you did grow up in poverty, when you finally have that wealth or a certain level of being rich, then listen, this is going to mean the world to you. You're going to appreciate it way more than just being rich all your life. Like, if you're rich all your life, it really wouldn't even matter to you at a certain point, you know, like, you know, that's
Mm.
been your entire life story. So I think the level of appreciation and the amount that you would value it, it would differ for sure.
I asked that question because I'm kind of in between the both of you. So I visit St. Lucia often, and also I live in the UK for all the people who are listening. And I was in a high paid job since the beginning of my career. My first job was £25,000. Moving on to like I ended my job where I work for somebody at £55,000 a year, which is like, what is that in EC dollars? 2.7, a lot. Like a
Yeah, it's
hundred
a
and
lot.
over, like almost 150,000 EC per year. Now, funny enough, despite that, as my years went on, I did not want to keep earning more. It was for me to find out how I can go back to St. Lucia as much as possible. Why? Because when I was in St. Lucia, I learned the simple factor of less equals more. That having less actually means that you get to have more. In England, where there is a lot of money and riches, you can say is basically a rich country in comparison. There's so many variables, so many things to chase, so many things to for maintenance of yourself. So many, even when you get to 50,000, you're still thinking about how do I get to 70 and how do I get to 100.
Mm.
And there's so many variables involved. But for people who are poor, there's less variables. Obviously, water, food, keep your roof over your head, but then you don't have to even, you just get by in a sense, which means again, you have more mental capacity to really appreciate where you're at. Now, the two of you both actually compared a person born into poverty and born into riches. And the interesting part is a person that transitions from poor to rich would be very interesting, because some people do forget where they're from. But why do I even ask this question? Because even when I go to St. Lucia, funny enough, the area that I hang out the most in is the poorest area in my town. But they are the most alive. all year round. All year round, which is crazy. And poor in St. Lucia and probably in Dominica compared to the UK. In the UK, you could die being poor. Like literally die. No housing, no food or stuff like you have to find your way to get into a food bank, etc. But in Dominica and St. Lucia, you could probably find someone to give you a plate of food. And I love to see the contrast between the two because it always made me wonder, is my goal to earn more money or is my goal to figure out how to make what I have work to its best? So when you ask the question, would I die for my people to be rich? No, because I don't believe the money is the actual answer. The actual answer is to how a person can appreciate or figure out what they already have. But it would work in both ways. Not only would you be able to use what you have to the best of its ability, but then you wouldn't actually realize you don't have to gain too much of it at the same time. It's a weird concept, but I worked in an area which I work at. So I'm in East London is where I live, for those who are listening. I worked in West London. In West London, the average house prices of East London at the time was 250,000 for a house. The average prices for the houses in West London were about $1 million. The people who had the cars were 6-figure cars. But the joke was, if you had to say who was in the most debt between the person who was in East London versus the person who was in West London, you best believe that these people borrowed ridiculous amounts. Their salary might be 100,000, but they might be at a 90% borrow rate. So if they even miss 1 month, they're 90,000 down for the year. 1 year, sorry, they were 90,000 down. But for us, because we have less, because we was able to attain less, we obviously have to work better with what we have. So I saw the contrast of London, different places you live in London, and then I saw the contrast of a different country. So that's why, that's my answer, and that's why I like this kind of contrast to see this, because again for Targhe, I could imagine seeing stuff like, well, looking at us, you'd probably say, I would just wish I could take what you guys have and earn and bring it back home. And this is how our generation started. If you don't know, Targhe, the history was in London, Caribbean people during the Windrush generation, which was in the 1930s onwards, kind of, there's a generation where they basically invited Caribbean people to build the industrial age of London, of the UK. And then they kind of had children in the UK, and they were the first generation Caribbeans that were born here. These are my parents, basically. And they went back home, etc. But our countries were classed as third world countries. St. Lucia, or all of our countries were classed as third world countries. And then they said, I just need to make money so I can go back. But a lot of them made money and never found their way back. And also, they don't even visit much for some people as well. So this is why I love this conversation, because this is really going to be like the contrast between everything. So yeah, we have people who do know what poverty was or is, and they lived in that kind of like one house with like 6 or 7 siblings at the same time, kind of thing. And they found the riches to an extent, and they never really went back, or they never figured it out. Maybe that wasn't the goal. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
It's mad. It's actually mad, because like just thinking about how it's a mindset in it. And I mean, we've covered this in so many different like financial topics and conversations we've had in the past, but obviously just focusing on what we're talking about is the mindset of, especially in particular, our young black men is striving to be rich, and they're willing to just kill for it as well. Like even just thinking about growing up in poverty and just the things that you do just to chase the money, whether it's you're going into crime, you're going into gangs, you're doing drugs, you're doing whatever else. It's thinking about what is the way out, what's really the thing that's gonna make you happy. And a lot of people confuse money with happiness, which is, I think, where we need to give back in terms of like education. Yeah, and money, as we've established, money is a tool, but it's not the money that's going to make you happy. It's what you're doing with it. And as we've said, even people in poverty, some people in poverty are the most happiest people in the world, because it's the smaller things that matter. So I think it's difficult to, and just to answer my own question, would I die trying to be rich? I don't think I would. I wouldn't, to be honest, because I'm not rich and I'm happy.